My name is Sierra. I'm 23 years old, and until the night my passport turned to ash in a ceramic bowl on our kitchen counter, I thought the worst thing my family could do was guilt me into staying small. I was wrong. I had spent 3 years saving for a graduation trip to England. Not some random vacation, not a reckless escape, but the one promise I made to myself after postponing everything: sleep, fun, dating, internships, even simple weekends, because somebody in this house always needed me more. So when I tore my room apart looking for my passport, I was stressed, but not afraid. Then I heard that voice behind me. "Searching for this?" she asked, almost laughing. I turned around and saw my passport in her hand and a lighter in the other. For one stupid second, I thought she was bluffing. Then the flame touched the corner. I remember the curl of black paper, the smell of burnt plastic, the way my chest locked up before I could even breathe. "There's no England graduation trip," she said. "England doesn't matter. Babysitting your niece does." She said it like my life was a hobby and hers was law. I didn't scream. I didn't lunge. I didn't give her the breakdown she was expecting. I just stared at the ashes, looked her dead in the eye, and walked out with my phone in my hand and a new kind of silence in my chest. Have you ever watched someone in your own family destroy your dream and still expect you to love them for it? Because that was the moment I realized this wasn't about childcare. It was about control. And 30 days later, that control would cost her far more than a passport. Before I tell you what she said next, and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel. I didn't cry in the driveway. That surprised me more than anything. I sat in my car with the engine off, hands frozen around the steering wheel, and all I could think was, she finally did it. She finally crossed the line she'd been inching toward for years. People love to act shocked when someone does something outrageous, but the truth is, cruelty usually rehearses itself in smaller ways first. A canceled plan here, a guilt trip there, a "you owe me" dressed up as family loyalty. That night, I opened my phone and found an old video from 2 summers earlier. We were both in it. She was laughing. I was holding her daughter on my hip, and someone behind the camera said we looked like best friends instead of sisters. For a few seconds, I watched us smile like nothing rotten lived underneath it. Then I turned the video off. That was the last time I let nostalgia lie to me. I drove to a 24-hour diner and called my best friend. She picked up on the second ring. I didn't say hello. I said, "She burned my passport." There was a pause so sharp I could hear dishes clatter in the background. Then she said, "No, tell me you're joking." I wasn't. 40 minutes later, she was sliding into the booth across from me, hair tied up, hoodie half zipped, face somewhere between furious and heartbroken. I told her everything, not just the passport, the years behind it, the last-minute babysitting, the missed campus trip because my sister claimed she had to work, the internship mixer I skipped because her daughter had a fever, and somehow that became my emergency. The birthdays, the weekends, the nights I studied with cartoons blaring in the background because apparently being the responsible one meant being endlessly available. "You need to report it," my friend said immediately, "and you need to stop protecting her." She was right. I had been protecting my sister from consequences for so long that she had started to think consequences were for other people. So right there in that greasy diner booth, I made a list. First, replace my documents. Second, secure my travel plans. Third, tell absolutely no one in the house anything they could sabotage. Luckily, I wasn't helpless. My passport was gone, but I still had a copy of my birth certificate in a folder from my college enrollment paperwork, an older learner's permit tucked inside a desk pouch she'd never found, scanned identification in my email, and digital copies of my university records. I spent the next 2 hours on government websites, reading requirements, printing forms, and filing a report for a destroyed passport. It wasn't easy, it wasn't instant, but it was possible. And the moment I realized that, my panic turned into something colder, cleaner, and far more useful. Rage with direction. The next morning, I went home before sunrise. The kitchen still smelled faintly scorched. She was asleep upstairs, probably convinced she had won. I stepped around the ashes she'd left behind, opened the cabinet above the microwave, and found what I was looking for. The cheap phone stand she used whenever she filmed those little, chaotic mom life videos for social media. I stared at it and remembered something that made my pulse slow down. The kitchen camera. 2 weeks earlier, she had set up an indoor security cam pointed at the back door because she swore packages were disappearing. If it had been recording the kitchen angle when she burned my passport, then she hadn't just committed sabotage. She had documented it. I said nothing. I went to my room, gathered every identity document I still had, and left again before she woke up. On the bus to the passport office, one thought kept pounding through my head. What if the people who ruin your life only do it because they're certain you'll never ruin theirs back? The replacement process was a nightmare, but not the impossible one she had imagined for me. I filed the damaged passport statement, submitted proof of citizenship, paid more than I could comfortably afford, and requested expedited service with the travel date attached. The clerk behind the glass was brisk but not unkind. She looked at the report, looked at me, and asked, "Destroyed by someone else?" I nodded. She didn't pry, just stamped the papers and said, "Watch your mail carefully." That same afternoon, I called the airline and moved a few things around to protect the booking. Then I changed my email password, my bank password, my cloud password, even the lock code on my phone. By the time I got home, I wasn't the same person who had walked out the night before. I was still hurt, still angry, but I was no longer reacting. I was building. Of course, she noticed. My sister always noticed when I stopped orbiting around her needs. I had barely put my bag down when she leaned against my doorframe like she owned the room. "You've been out all day," she said. Not a question, a warning. I kept my eyes on my laptop. I had errands. "Errands for what?" she asked. "You planning to resurrect that stupid trip?" There it was. That tone. That ugly little thrill she got whenever she thought she had the moral right to crush someone. I turned slowly and met her stare. It wasn't stupid to me. She crossed her arms. "You're really doing this? After everything I juggle? After everything I've done?" I laughed once, and I think that threw her off. Not because it was funny, but because for the first time her script sounded exactly like a script. Same lines, same victim act, same expectation that I'd apologize for wanting a life. "You burned a federal document," I said quietly. "Do you even understand how insane that is?" Her expression flickered. Not guilt, irritation. "Oh, please, stop being dramatic. You're acting like I killed someone. It was a passport, Sierra. Paper. You can get another one." That told me everything. She knew it was wrong. She just thought wrong things stopped mattering if they happened to me. Then she took one step closer and lowered her voice. "You're not going to England. You're needed here. My daughter needs stability, and you running off right now is selfish." I should explain something. By then, she had spent years training the family to hear, "My daughter needs help," and translated into, "Sierra will handle it." She had become so comfortable outsourcing her responsibilities to emotion that she genuinely saw my boundaries as betrayal. "No," I said, standing up. "What's selfish is deciding my future is less important than your convenience." Her jaw tightened. "Convenience? You think motherhood is convenience?" "No," I snapped. "But turning your little sister into unpaid backup labor for years absolutely is." She hated that. Not because it was untrue, but because it was precise. She stepped into my room and grabbed a printed itinerary from my desk before I could stop her. "This," she said, waving it, "this matters more to you than your family?" Then she ripped it straight down the middle. My flight details, hotel confirmations, rail pass notes, torn clean in half and dropped at my feet. I stared at the pieces. Not because I needed the paper. I had digital copies, but because the gesture was so revealing. She couldn't win with logic, so she needed performance, damage, a symbol she could destroy. Again. "Get out," I said. She smirked. "Or what?" I bent, picked up the ripped paper, smoothed it once, and set it back on the desk. Then I looked at her with a calm that made her face change. "Or I stop covering for you," I said. "At home, with Mom and Dad, online, everywhere. And once I start telling the truth, you won't like how loud it gets." For the first time in that conversation, she went quiet. Just for a second. Then she rolled her eyes and laughed like I was bluffing. "You don't have the guts." She walked out, but not before shoulder-checking the frame hard enough to shake the wall photo beside it. I locked my door and reprinted the itinerary. While the printer hummed, I opened the family group chat and stared at the empty text box. Not yet, I thought. Not until the timing hurts. Then I wrote myself a note instead. Save every threat. Save every lie. Save every bruise she leaves on the truth. Because revenge isn't just about anger, it's about timing. And that night, while taping the torn itinerary into my journal like evidence, I had one question I couldn't shake. Are we selfish for choosing ourselves, or have we just been surrounded by people who profit when we disappear? 3 days later came family dinner, the kind that looks harmless from the outside and leaves emotional blood on the floor by dessert. My mother made baked chicken, my father poured iced tea, my niece colored on the back of an envelope at the table, and my sister acted sweeter than usual, which should have warned me. Manipulators love witnesses. They especially love an audience that still wants to believe they're good people. I had debated skipping dinner entirely, but part of me was tired of letting every important conversation happen in whispers and corners. If this was going to explode, maybe it was time to let it explode where everybody could hear it. We made it through 10 minutes of small talk before my sister set down her fork, sighed dramatically, and said, "I just don't know what more I'm supposed to do for this family." I looked up slowly. There it was. The setup. My mom frowned. "What happened now?" My sister dabbed at the corner of her eye with a napkin. No tears, just the posture of tears. "Nothing," she said. "It's just hard when you realize some people don't care who they leave behind." My father glanced at me. I could feel it coming, the way you feel a storm in your joints before the first drop hits. I set my glass down. "Say it directly." She turned to me like I had invited the honesty. "Fine. Sierra is still obsessing over that trip, even after everything. She knows I need help with my daughter. She knows my work schedule is insane, and she still plans to leave. Right after graduation. Right when I need family the most." She said, "Family," the way a kid says, "mine." My mother's face tightened. "Sierra, is that true?" I knew this moment mattered. One wrong tone, and I'd become the unreasonable daughter, the dramatic younger sister, the selfish girl chasing Europe while everyone else dealt with real life. So I answered plainly. "I am going on the graduation trip I paid for myself. Yes." My father leaned back. "At a time like this?" "What time is that?" I asked. "The time when my life is finally starting?" My sister jumped in before he could answer. "See? This attitude. She acts like the rest of us are burdens she's finally shedding." I laughed once, bitter and sharp. "No, I act like I'm tired of being volunteered for responsibilities that were never mine." The table went still. My mother's eyes widened. more at my bluntness than my words. My sister sat straighter. Unbelievable, she said. You babysit sometimes, and now you want to meddle? I had promised myself I'd stay calm, but there is a limit to what the body can swallow before it starts spitting truth. Sometimes? I repeated. Try multiple nights a week during exam season. Try canceled plans, missed opportunities, emergency pickups, last-minute weekends. Try being told I'm selfish anytime I say no. Because you are selfish, she shot back. You don't understand sacrifice. I understand it perfectly, I said. That's how I know I'm done offering mine to someone who treats it like rent. My father's hand hit the table lightly. Enough. But it wasn't enough, because then my mother said the thing that cracked whatever fragile loyalty I still had left. Maybe, she said carefully, this trip could be postponed until things are less tense. There it was. Not outrage over the passport, not concern over sabotage, not a single direct question about why I seemed so done. Just the usual family instinct to make the more reasonable person carry the peace. My sister lowered her eyes like a saint receiving validation. Something cold moved through me. Do either of you know what she did? I asked. Neither answered. My sister looked at me hard, a silent dare. She hadn't told them. Of course she hadn't. Her version only worked in half-light. She burned my passport, I said. My mother blinked. My father froze. My niece kept coloring. What? My father said. My sister scoffed immediately. Oh my God, here we go. It was damaged. She's twisting it to make me look evil. You lit it on fire, I said. In the kitchen. On purpose. My mother turned to her, but not with the horror I had hoped for. With confusion, hesitation. The kind that means a lie still has room to grow. Sarah? My sister shook her head, offended on command. I was angry. I held a lighter near it. I didn't think it would catch like that. She's making it sound criminal. It is criminal, I said. My father rubbed his temple. Why are we hearing about this now? I almost laughed at that too. Because that was the family specialty. Not, why did this happen? But, why are you making us deal with it? I pushed my chair back. Because every single time she hurts me, this house asks the same question. Not what she did. Not why she thinks she can do it. Just why I'm speaking. My sister stood too. You always play victim when you don't get your way. And you always cry family when you need free labor. My mother gasped my name, but I wasn't stopping. Not now. You want to know the truth? She doesn't care about my niece needing me. She cares about losing control. She cares that if I leave, you might finally notice how much of her life has been balanced on my back. The silence after that was brutal. My sister's face went white, then red. Get over yourself, she hissed. You think we can't survive without you? I think you're terrified to find out. My father stood up then, voice low and stern. This has gone too far. But the damage was already in the room, alive and impossible to fold back into politeness. My sister grabbed her plate and slammed it into the sink so hard I thought it would crack. Fine, she said. Go. Leave. But don't come crying back when nobody here owes you anything. I looked at my parents, really looked, and saw what hurt most. Not hatred, but cowardice. The kind that dresses itself as neutrality while quietly feeding the bully. I went upstairs that night more alone than I had ever felt in that house. And lying awake in the dark, I kept thinking, when the people who should protect you keep choosing comfort over truth, do you owe them softness or a lesson they'll never forget? The next morning, my replacement passport was marked out for delivery, which meant the countdown had officially begun. I skipped class, rented a small locker at a storage facility near campus, and paid cash for a month. It wasn't glamorous, but it was private. If the passport arrived at the house, she could intercept it. If I sent it to a friend, she might sniff that out too. So I rerouted everything to a pickup location and waited like a soldier guarding a border. When the envelope finally landed in my hands, I didn't feel joy. I felt relief so intense it made me shaky. A document, a name, a stamped piece of permission, and somehow it felt like I had rebuilt a spine. I slid the passport into a plastic sleeve, tucked it into the locker with copies of my itinerary, extra cash, and a small notebook, then locked it away. I didn't tell anyone. At home, I acted tired, distracted, defeated. Let her think the fire had worked. Let her believe despair had made me passive. Sometimes the smartest revenge begins with letting the other person underestimate how awake you are. That same evening, I got my first real gift from her arrogance. I was in the hallway outside the laundry room when I heard her in the living room, speakerphone on, voice low and frantic. No, I'm telling you, if she leaves, I'm stuck. Mom's already been complaining about money. Dad said once Sierra graduates, things need to change. If she goes, they're going to stop helping me because they'll think I can manage on my own. I stopped breathing. Another woman's voice crackled through the speaker. Then stop her. My sister laughed without humor. I'm trying. So that was it. Not love, not family, not fear for my niece. Money, convenience, image. If I left, the illusion collapsed and my parents might finally see that she wasn't overwhelmed by fate. She was addicted to being rescued. I backed away before the floor could creak, my pulse pounding with a kind of clarity that felt almost merciful. Once you know the real motive, the guilt loses its teeth. Later that night, she came into my room without knocking. She had that falsely calm expression I'd started recognizing as danger in nice packaging. "You've been weird," she said. "Quiet." I closed my textbook. Maybe because I don't enjoy talking to arsonists. Her mouth twitched. Still with that? She wandered to my dresser, touching random things like she was inspecting what belonged to her. Then she picked up my old travel toiletry bag and smiled. "You really think you can keep secrets from me in this house?" I stood. "Put it down." Instead, she opened it. Empty. She looked almost offended that I'd become careful. "Where is it?" she asked. "Where's what?" "Don't play dumb." She stepped closer. "Your new passport. I know you got another one." I said nothing. Her eyes narrowed. "Who helped you?" Still nothing. That silence enraged her more than any insult could have. She grabbed my arm hard enough to sting. "I asked you a question." I pulled free. "And I'm not answering it." For one ugly second, I thought she might hit me. Instead, she smiled. That was worse. "Fine," she said softly. "Maybe I don't need the passport. Maybe I just need one good post." My stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" She lifted her phone. A few sad photos. A caption about how my sister is abandoning her sick little niece to go party in England. "You'd be amazed how fast people judge." "She isn't sick." "She had a fever last month. Details blur online." I stared at her. "That's disgusting." "No," she said. "It's effective." She took another step. "Or maybe I message your ex. Tell him you're traveling with the guy you used to flirt with in study group. Stir things up. Or maybe I contact the relatives in church and let them ask our parents why they raised a daughter who runs from family." I wish I could say I was shocked, but at that point I was mostly tired. Tired of how easily she weaponized reputation. Tired of how confident she was that emotional blackmail counted as strategy. "Go ahead," I said. She blinked. "What?" "Do it. Post, lie, call whoever you want." Her face shifted, not because she felt shame, but because she sensed a trap and couldn't see it yet. "You're bluffing," she said. "Am I?" I reached past her, opened my top drawer, and pulled out nothing more threatening than a charging cable. But even that movement made her tense. Good. Let uncertainty sit in her for once. You should be really careful, I said, about forcing public attention onto a story you can't control. Her mouth hardened. You think you have something on me? I met her gaze and kept my voice flat. I think you talk too much when you feel entitled. She left with more force than grace, slamming the door so hard a framed print fell off my shelf. The second she was gone, I picked up my phone and made 2 calls. First, to my friend, who still had access to the security app from the day she helped set up the house Wi-Fi and never got removed. Second, to my cousin, who had once worked in family law and knew exactly what phrases made parents start panicking about liability. By midnight, I had the kitchen footage downloaded to 3 separate places. There she was in clear view, holding my passport, mocking me, lighting it, and letting it burn while I stood frozen. Her voice was sharp, casual, undeniable. I watched it twice, not because I enjoyed it, because evidence changes grief into leverage. Then I made a second folder labeled, "If needed." Not yet, I told myself. Let her build the gallows first. She still thought she was hunting me. She had no idea I was measuring the rope. 2 days before my flight, the house turned into a quiet war zone. My sister started acting fragile in front of our parents, exhausted in front of neighbors, and wounded on the phone with relatives. Everywhere I turned, she was planting the same message. Poor her. Selfish me. My parents didn't fully join in, but they didn't stop it either. They moved around me with that tense politeness families use when they know something ugly is happening and still hope silence will solve it. I packed the rest of my things at my friend's apartment and only slept at home because I wanted my departure to happen in daylight, in front of witnesses. That night, I overheard my mother whisper to my father, "What if Sierra leaves and Sarah can't handle things?" My father answered after a long pause. "Then she'll have to learn. Maybe we made it too easy for her not to grow up." I stood frozen in the hallway with a blanket in my hands and realized something that hurt almost as much as the passport. They had seen this pattern for a long time. Maybe not all of it, but enough. Enough to know I was carrying too much. Enough to let it continue because I was the easier solution. Back in my room, I thought about the years I had given away, staying overnight after my niece was born, skipping important school opportunities, babysitting through exam weeks, becoming the dependable one everyone praised while quietly using me. Mature, reliable, selfless. Words that sound like love until you realize they are only handed to the person being drained. Around midnight, my sister came into my room again. This time, her voice was softer, almost careful. "Can we talk?" she asked. I let her speak. She admitted things had gotten out of hand, then finally said what all of this had really been about. Once I graduated and left, our parents would cut back their help and expect her to manage her own life. "If you go, everything changes," she said. "Yes," I answered. She looked at me with fear, then anger. "You think you're better than me because you can run?" "No," I said. "I think I'm finally done standing still." She tried one last weapon and pointed at my niece. "She's going to cry for you." That hit, but not enough to break me. "Don't use her," I said. "She needs a mother who stops treating people like spare parts." Her face twisted. "You'll regret talking to me like that," she whispered. But she was already too late. After she left, I sent myself a scheduled email titled, "Open if delayed." It included the kitchen footage, screenshots of her threats, the details of her phone call, and a short explanation for my parents. If she tried anything at the airport or forced one last lie into public view, the truth would reach everyone. She had spent years playing emotional chess. I was finally ready to end the game. And lying awake that night, I kept thinking, how much of your life can family take before refusing them becomes the first honest thing you've ever done? The morning of my flight arrived bright and almost offensively normal. Sun through the blinds, coffee in the kitchen, my father in work boots, my mother pretending to wipe the same clean section of counter over and over. My suitcase was already in my friend's car outside, my real documents secure, my boarding pass downloaded twice. I was ready, which meant, of course, that she made her move. She came down the stairs dressed too quickly, phone in hand, eyes alert in that brittle way people look when they've chosen chaos before breakfast. "You're really leaving," she said, like she still couldn't believe disobedience had become real. "Yes." My mother spoke before she could. "Maybe we can all just calm down and talk for 5 minutes." "No," I said, without looking away from my sister. "Talking is what this family does instead of changing anything." My father exhaled hard but didn't interrupt. My sister stepped closer. "If you walk out that door, don't expect things to be the same when you come back." I almost smiled. "They already aren't." Her thumb moved over her phone screen. "I posted it," she said. "What?" my mother asked. My sister's voice turned theatrical. "A simple truth, that my sister is abandoning her niece and leaving after causing chaos in this house." My phone buzzed instantly, then again, and again. I didn't check it. I didn't need to. I already knew the shape of her lie. She had chosen public humiliation as her final weapon because private sabotage had failed. "Take it down," my mother said sharply, shocked more by the visibility than the cruelty. My sister ignored her. "Maybe now people will see who you really are." I looked at her for a long second, then reached into my coat pocket and placed my own phone on the kitchen table. "Funny," I said, "because I was about to let people see who you are." My father frowned. "Sierra." But I had already tapped the screen and pressed play. Her voice filled the kitchen first, mocking, clear. "Searching for this? There's no England graduation trip." Then the flick of the lighter, the tiny flare, the blackening edge of my passport. My mother covered her mouth. My father went completely still. The video continued just long enough to make denial impossible. Her shrug, her voice again. "England doesn't matter. Babysitting your niece does." Silence slammed into the room after the clip ended. My sister's face had gone colorless. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I tapped the screen again. This time it was the audio from the speakerphone call, the one where she admitted she was trying to stop me because if I left, our parents might cut financial help and realize she'd been relying on me to keep her life functioning. Not emotion, not motherhood. Logistics, money, control. My mother sank into a chair. My father looked at my sister like he was seeing a stranger wearing his daughter's face. "Tell me that's edited," he said. She opened her mouth and nothing came out. "Tell me," he said again, louder. "It's not like that," she began. I laughed, not nicely. "It's exactly like that." Then I did the part I had planned, only if she forced me. I opened the family group chat, the extended one with aunts, cousins, uncles, the church ladies who always had opinions, and I sent the video, the audio, and one line of text. "For everyone asking why I'm leaving today, here is the truth. I paid for my graduation trip. My passport was burned to force me into unpaid childcare. I stayed quiet for years. I am not staying quiet anymore." My sister lunged for my phone, but my father caught her wrist midair. Not violently, just firmly. "Final." "Enough," he said, and that word sounded different now. Not polite, not weary. Done. My mother started crying, but not the soft kind, the devastated kind that comes when denial dies publicly. "How could you do this?" she asked my sister. "How could you do this to her?" my sister finally snapped. "Because nobody understands what I deal with," she screamed. "Because she gets to leave and I get stuck. Because all of you expect me to just handle everything." "No," I said. "You expected me to handle everything." She turned on me, shaking. "You ruined this family." No, I said again, calmer this time. I just stopped being the glue. The phone on the table buzzed nonstop now. Messages pouring into the group chat. Relatives reacting in real time. My aunt asking if the video was real. My cousin saying destroying a passport was a federal offense. One church friend writing, in all caps, "Sarah, you need to apologize now." My sister saw the notifications and looked sick. Good. Consequences had finally entered the room wearing witnesses. My father let go of her wrist and stepped back, like contact itself disgusted him. "You will take that post down immediately," he said. "And after today, your finances are your responsibility. No more support beyond the basics for the child. No more dumping your obligations on Sierra. We should have ended this long ago." My sister stared at him. "You can't be serious." "I am," he said. My mother nodded through tears. "You need help, Sarah. Real help. But this is abuse." I had imagined this moment 100 ways. Her crying, her screaming, her begging. In reality, what happened was smaller and somehow more satisfying. She looked around the kitchen, waiting for someone to save her from the truth the way they always had, and no one moved. Not one person stepped between her and consequence. The silence she had spent years assigning to me had finally become hers. She whispered my name once, not lovingly, not hatefully, just in disbelief. "Sierra." I picked up my phone and slid it into my pocket. "You thought you burned a passport," I said. "What you really burned was the last excuse anyone had left for protecting you." Then I walked to the door. My mother called after me, asking if I would please text when I got to the airport. My father said he was sorry in a voice so raw I almost turned around. Almost. But some apologies arrive after the wound has already learned to close without them. Outside, the air felt colder, cleaner. My friend jumped out of the car and took one look at my face before asking, "Did she try something?" I put my suitcase in the trunk and nodded. "Yeah," I said, "and she lost." On the drive to the airport, my phone kept vibrating. My sister had deleted the post. My aunt had called twice. My cousin sent me the number of a lawyer, just in case. My mother texted, "You were right. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." My father texted separately, "Go live your life. We will handle things here." I looked out the window and, for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty for leaving. I felt accurate. At the airport, check-in was smooth. Security was easy. No police, no fake emergency, no final dramatic ambush. Just lines, announcements, roller bags, and the strange lightness that comes when a threat you survived no longer owns your body. At the gate, I bought an overpriced bottle of water and finally checked the group chat. It was chaos. Some relatives were furious at my sister. Some were embarrassed. A few were doing that spineless both sides dance people do when truth feels socially inconvenient. I ignored them all. Then a new message popped up from my sister alone. Just one line. "You didn't have to humiliate me." I stared at it and actually smiled. After everything, the fire, the lies, the guilt, the threats, the post, her deepest pain was still humiliation. Not what she had done, not what I had survived. Just the fact that everyone could see her now. I typed back exactly once. "You humiliated yourself the moment you decided my life belonged to you." Then I blocked her before the plane started boarding. When I finally sat by the window and the runway blurred beneath us, I thought I would feel triumphant. Instead, I felt something quieter and better. Relief with a spine. Freedom without apology. England wasn't an escape anymore. It was proof. Proof that I could choose myself and the world wouldn't end. Proof that love without respect is just another form of control. Proof that sometimes revenge isn't ruining the person who hurt you. It's making sure they can never again hide what they are. When the plane lifted through the clouds, I looked down at the shrinking city and thought of the kitchen, the ashes, the years, the child I loved but refused to be trapped through, the parents who learned too late, and the sister who thought fear made her powerful. Then I whispered the only goodbye she had earned. Watch me leave. And I did. At Revenge Argonne, our team works hard to create meaningful and engaging stories that leave a lasting impression on viewers. We are committed to making it clear that these are fictional stories, created to share educational lessons, positive values, and useful life insights with our audience. Sarah wasn't just controlling. She was the kind of person who believed her needs gave her the right to destroy someone else's future. Instead of facing her own responsibilities, she chose manipulation, guilt, and cruelty to keep Sierra trapped. If you were in Sierra's place, how would you deal with someone like Sarah? And what do you think the right consequence should be?